Hi, they said it was irrefutable. Okay. Some things they will say that theoretically anything's possible. When it comes to things that are irrefutable, what weighs in the fact of the matter is that gravity is undefined in the smaller things. Meaning, the more something is small, the more gravity is still there, but we don't know anything about it. Just as anything can be a handle, anything can be designated. So God said he made your body in his image, and then your body's your temple. I wouldn't change it for anything, not even Fauci. I know how everyone's born, and it's a blessing that you're here. But what's preventing you, when you raise like your arm, it not falling off? Or think about like your skin. If it can have goosebumps, and that's a bump, you have yourself zits, that's bumps. One last example, chicken pox or like hives, those are bumps. But all these bumps, they're so different, but they're the same because they're defined in gradients as their characteristics would have it be different. And I know so many things, definitions, why those are so important, because they're what allows orders to be made. It's just like getting the chills versus if you have arthritis versus a seizure. They're all the same thing, but they have a characteristic that grades them different. So when it comes to reading the tea leaves, people would claim it's just smoke and mirrors, which would mean it is negligible. But I know it's undeniable how calculations are occurrences, just coming to coagulations or engraving. It's all the same if you know the basic constituents and laws governing the nature. Take a crystal, for example. It grows because it absorbs from the soil around it. And this is a reflection of how trees are foliage. The trees around it is giving a characteristic identity of the leaves all together. If you look at them in one long line, you can see the hydration of the dehydrating. Well, when something is out of whack, you call it like a glitch. That's a fancy way of sugarcoating the coding. And the coding is something where it gives a literal representation of the underlying constituents. And an underlying constituents in most things, if they're alive, even things that are dead like this brick, are the genes. And this is where coding is so important, because they are literal, a material that is a code of it. He's like, I was born straight, it's just when I came out, I was upside down. So this is where I get involved in computer codes. Is nothing to be afraid. It's just like a sign that says Indian plant. Well, every plant in the United States is here because it was on Indian soil, so that doesn't mean anything. Or it's like hitting an ambulance when you're driving in the road. The ambulance is there because it's an aim towards helping people not get hurt. Well, it crashing into your car, it's an error on its face. So what's flesh eating? In the movies with vampires, and they go ahead inside of the sunlight, well, their skin starts to burn off, and then their entire body turns into ash. And so that's a condition, one that is flesh eating. And so how many things are like that if it could be underneath a light? If you have a magnifying glass, then you stick it under the sun, and then it is on top of like ants that would ostensibly be the same thing that a vampire has going on for it all the time if it's inside the sunlight. But what if there was like a specific light bulb that was attuned to a human's epidermis, and so that its interaction when under it would be like burning grass into its dirt under it? Such a configuration is evitable because glass, and when it's blown, has dynamics like a gear. Well, all molecular structures do. And when they're combined together to rotate, the inertia is the reaction of the force through its underpinning. Well, that's derived as the action for basic constituents in general. Or if there's two things I've learned, is that there's pay to play and there's a pay per view. Predictability is the name of the game, where it gives estimations. But if the estimations are in the things with wrong hands or no hands, well, now you're in a game without knowing who you're playing against. The more that a condition is made into conditioning, you're going to be easier left out to dry to walk the plank. Two examples: dumb as a box of rocks, whereas a mental capacity, you're defining an IQ, where if you're defining an IQ of someone who is timid, write them off as ADD, and now you're belittling them. Second example, if someone is heartless, they're always shocked all the time, because that's a condition as well. And then their adrenaline is played for, and then they lose control and they have to have a ticket that they have to pay for in disorderly conduct. Put it into the context of a time frame. Well, now it has a significant amount of meaning. But a play on that would be when the lockdown, it couldn't ever stop. For some people, it never will. So if I really meant what I was trying to do, then that would be I wouldn't cut my hair ever again. Well, it would still continue to grow in either case. But you get to decide what it means, especially if it's intrapersonal. And what is the aim at intrapersonalities are algorithmic systems. These are easily deduced when people are easily readable. The easiest persons to read are ones that can't think for themselves, or ones that try doing bad things all the time, because when you're bad, it's easy to see that you're being bad. What if you're behind a closed door and you're doing bad things? That's different, because then that's no different than an algorithm that's written in poor code, whereas only through the software you're able to see if it sucks or not. So understanding how software sucks is if it freezes or it just is boring. So this is the archetype of a computation being equivalent to someone who is short-tempered or dumb as a box of rocks. Hey, do you know that even rocks, if you inject like something bad into them, it would be more preferable than injecting something bad into stuff that has blood cells? Because blood cells, I'll have you note, have hemoglobin. They control air going in and moving it. And then if they're becoming pale, they have less of a way for them to elaborate out from bones and move about for 90 to 100 days. Whereas those 90 to 100 days, if their hemoglobins are being eradicated, then the air passage is harder and they'll tend to clot. And if you are clotting and have low air circulation within your bloodstream system, you're likely to be making dumb decisions and getting mad at the decisions that are dumb, where in turn making slow progress and being easily read is a memory that is its definition of its being. It's all that, like how a beehive, it always is going to be the same shape. Well, it's just because the bees are all knowing of, well, this is the best shape for it to make. Where in AI, it just knows the best memory because it's always kept in it, because that's how it's defined as.